Hello everyone, thank you for joining yet another rental scale up masterclass webinar online hour of fun. Seriously, today we're going to be talking about 2025 and especially on the supply side, inventory side. Um, to me it's an interesting topic because all this year we've heard people complaining about oversupply, there's too much supply in the market, or I can't even fill up my current properties. What should I do? It's going to be super interesting because we're going to see what's different in 2025 when we have to talk about your strategy. We'll also see that some stuff, tried and true tactics, are still applicable, and we'll see actually where you can drive revenues up. I got, as usual, I let people streaming. Welcome, everybody. 60 of you already. I got like 4 slides before we dive straight into the talk with Brooke and Mahwushh, who are our speakers today. Quite excited. So, housekeeping indeed. Thank you for Yuvika and Snigdha for organizing this session. So, we have a Q&A section in Zoom. You can ask any question anytime. I'll try to look at the questions as we go along. Otherwise, it will take the questions at the end. But straight away in the chat, just can you let me know where you are, maybe and how many properties you are managing? So we can get started. We can have a feel of who you are because we want to make sure we are adapting the session to you. So just in the chat, let us know where you're based and how many properties you have. Thank you, Jack. Jack in the Smoky Mountains, 230 properties. Kyle, 110 properties, Oklahoma. Destin, Florida. Hello. Joanna from Porto. There we go. You guys are going so fast. Fantastic. All right. Chris in south of England, 500 properties, 14 properties beachfront for Mark in Florida, 75 in London, 5 in New York State. Great. 65, 50 plus. Cool. That's good. So keep it coming. Let us know. And I'm going to start with my 4 slides and get started straight away because there's no reason to make you wait. All right. If you've ever attended a session with me, you know how I'm always struggling to find the right screen to share, but I hope it's the right one. It's not my family photos for once. All right. I hope you can see the right screen. Let me know if not. Um, uh, all right. So as I said, we shall be talking about supply this session about 2025. Um, I'm Thibault. I'm the founder of Rental Scale Up. It's a short-term rentals news website. We talk about what the big OTAs are up to, Airbnb, or we talk about market trends, or we talk about as well vacation rental technology. And I'm also the head of product marketing for PriceLabs, which now owns Rental Scale Up, and PriceLabs is a revenue management and dynamic pricing platform. Look at that, all done. But without further ado, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop here the slides for the moment so that Brooke and Mahwushh can introduce themselves because I think it's way more fun than hearing me talk for hours. So, Brooke, you're first on your slide. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, happy to. So thanks for having us, Thibault. Yeah, this is a great event. Pleasure to be here. But my name is Brooke Pfautz. I've been in the short-term rental space for I just celebrated my 17th anniversary in this great industry. Stumbled into it like many of us did. Was actually in mortgage banking prior to this, but launched a company called Vantage Resort Realty in Ocean City, Maryland, which is about 3 hours east of Washington, D.C. Grew that company pretty fast, grew it from 0 to 500 properties in 5 years. Then I sold that company, and then I was chief business development officer for a large management company down in Orlando. Did that for about 5 years. And then about 6 years or so ago, launched Vintory. And Vintory, we do one thing and one thing only, and that's help professional management companies grow their inventory. So we don't do anything with guests. We're not doing anything with revenue management. We're not doing anything with operations. We focus exclusively on supply and helping management companies add more properties. And then about a year ago, I launched another company called Comparent, and Comparent is the largest marketplace connecting vacation rental homeowners and vacation rental managers. So it's kind of like Match.com, connecting those two parties there. and it's the largest marketplace in the world for management companies. There's over 5,000, I think there's like 5,500 management companies on there right now. And we're driving lots and lots of homeowner traffic there, and where they can see, lots of different metrics and reviews and things like that, so they can make it really easy to decide who's the best management company to manage their property. And yeah, written a couple books along the way on vacation rentals. And happy to be here. Thank you.
Speaking of which, Brooke, first, very excited to have you here. Don't you have a new book out there?
Do I just yeah, just a couple weeks ago wrote my third book. So this is called The Ultimate Tech Stack Guide. The tools and software that power the top professional vacation rental managers. And this actually started as a LinkedIn post. I asked 55 different vacation rental managers to share their tech stacks. These are some of the top leaders in the industry. What software powers their company? And I kind of consolidated it all. And there's some of course, PriceLabs is at the top of the list under revenue management, but there's lots of different great companies in there, got lots of things. But if anybody, I think Yuvika will put in this in the notes here in the comments in the chat, how to get it. We're happy to give that away for free. So if you just go to vintory.com/tech hyphen stack slash hyphen, you can get a book. She'll hopefully put it in the comments and make it a little bit easier, but happy to give it away for free to everybody if you go ahead and do that. If it's international, you can download it, but if you are in the US, we'll actually mail you a copy, or anywhere that Amazon Kindle delivers. We'll happy to send you a copy for free.
Fantastic, Brooke. Thank you so much for being here. As you know, Brooke is a member of the industry that's so resourceful, and thank you for your time today. Indeed, the link is in the comments, and I see as well a question in the comments. Yes, we are recording this session, so anybody who signed up will receive this a recording of this session, plus probably the links that we've been mentioning, just to make your life easier, because that's what we do. Mahwushh, how about yourself? How are you? What time is it? I can't wait to see the view from your building.
Good evening, everybody. It's 8 p.m. in Dubai, and there's this famous highway, Sheikh Zayed Road, that we are at just behind me. So my company is called One Perfect Stay. I've been in the vacation rental space for the past 8 years, almost completing a decade. Um, I was more of a tech salesperson before this. I was working for IBM, doing 9 to 5, and I just knew that 9 to 5 sort of a job space was not for me. So I ventured into entrepreneurship. Vacation rental was something which was coincidental. I landed in it. I literally started from a single property and then scaled it up to almost 200 units. Today, we are managing about hundreds of units all across prime areas of Dubai, almost launched in Abu Dhabi, making inroads in Riyadh, which is Saudi Arabia. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, a roller coaster, and it continues. We have two other verticals under One Perfect Group. So there's One Perfect Stay, which is the main company, which is the vacation rental company. And then we have One Perfect Space, which is the renovations and interiors. And 2 years ago, I launched a real estate company, again under the same group by the name One Perfect Real Estate. So we try to do all under one banner. Initially, with One Perfect Stay being the holiday home operators, being the property managers, just getting the stake out of the management was not too satiating. So we scaled different verticals, and it's just been growing ever since.
Great to hear again that story of growth, and I'm so excited to have both of you here because we'll be talking about 2025 in very different markets, but also things we can learn from each. And I think we'll conclude talking about diversification and extending different markets. And I think both of you have things to say about it. But to get started, first, let's paint a picture. So, what was, for example, for you, Brooke, what was the year 2024 of supply in US? What did you see? What did you hear? And as well, then I will turn to Mahwushh for you to paint a picture. What's the Dubai market like in terms of supply for people really to understand what we're talking about today? But first, Brooke, 2024, what was it like in terms of inventory and supply for property managers?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a challenging year. I think if you look back overall, and I always love key data because they share some really good data. And I think I looked at a stat and they said last year, if you looked at all the US managers in particular, only 57% of them actually, had positive net growth rate. And there was a direct correlation. The only ones that did actually grow, they grew their inventory. Anyone else that was flat, they were down in total top line revenue. So that's why I think if you look, and I think another poll that Key Data did was they said, what percentage of you are actually looking to expand your portfolio in 2025? And I think it was, three quarters. It was almost 75 or 74% were actually looking to expand their portfolio because they know that it really is the only way they can significantly increase their revenue and profits. And we'll talk about that a little bit here. But yeah, I think it's you got to grow supply if you want to grow that top line revenue.
Very clear, very clear. And indeed, before we go into 2025, why you should do that. Mahwushh, how about us? Because it's very interesting, I think, for people to understand how the market is structured, because that's going to really, really help us understand, the moves people need to do in terms of supply growth there.
Oh, sure. So as per 2022, Dubai is a 1.4 billion dirhams market just for short-term rentals. That's about 385 million USD. 2022, 2023 had been splendid for One Perfect Group, especially for One Perfect Stay. Came 2024, it had been a bit of a challenge, to be honest, because you see the annual rentals in Dubai had been at an all-time high. They still are. Dubai real estate is a hot favorite. There is something for everyone to grab. And so, for vacation rental, we are sort of a hybrid segment in between hotels and real estate. And, seeing all the glamour around it, everybody wanted to jump into it. So whether that's from competition or the sort of diversified supply that's coming from everywhere, and the investor slash homeowner seeing the hype around it made it a lot more difficult for the holiday home operator to sort of navigate through all of these factors. But to top it all was the annual rental. And a typical pitch usually is that short-term rental makes 20 to 30% more than a typical annual rental lease, which is not exactly true in this day and time, especially in Dubai. We have a tremendous growth in terms of expat movement, people making Dubai their home, etc. So naturally, annual rentals have been at an all-time high. And to convince the homeowner to still put the property on short-term rental has been more of a challenge. So hence there was a more churn. We sat together, we sort of pivot and sort of diversified and looked at other segments which were still lucrative for short-term rental. So all in all, 2024 early was a challenge. Came August, it has been getting better. So it's a mixed bag from One Perfect Stay's perspective, to be honest.
Yeah, thanks for being honest again, and for painting a picture of the arbitrage, basically, right, that owners have in Dubai, and maybe different across some markets, but may resonate with some people attending here because sometimes obviously we need to have conversations with the homeowners or real estate groups that we're dealing with. How about 2025? And I want to talk about this starting with you, Brooke, because in a way, and rentals scale up week after week. I'm talking about oversupply. There's an oversupply. There's more listings at Airbnb and Booking and Vrbo. Every week have advertising campaign on YouTube where they tell homeowners to start listings, right? So there's no end in sight, yet more listings. And yet you think that in 2025, people should be adding inventory. Why do you think so? And you started touching upon that, but let's repeat that to make it very clear. Why should people still be adding supply in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I might be a little bit biased because we're in the inventory growth business, but just like the stats I said before, that it is really truly the only way you can kind of increase your top line revenues and your bottom line profits. And and we've done some studies on this. Adding new inventory is the greatest lever you can do to grow your top line revenue. We did a study. We took like an average property manager with about 40 properties doing about $300 a night, 65% occupancy. And, you think about there's three levers you can pull. You can increase rates. So let's say you go out there and you increase your rates by 5%. It has a $142,000 impact. If you increase your occupancy by 5%, it has about a $219,000 impact. And look, these are important things. You have to do these things, right? You need to continue to market and distribution. You need to do revenue management. But if you look at the same equivalent lift, and we surveyed all of our partners, and they said the same equivalent lift would be about adding one property per month. Well, if you do the math on that, that's an $854,000 top line revenue boost, or 4 to 6 times the impact. Again, there is not a better lever that you can pull, to increase your top line revenues or even your bottom line profits than just adding a couple properties. It has the most significant impact. It's like I always say, like adding one property is like getting 100 reservations. You're gonna get them. You will get those reservations. So go ahead and grow the supply, grow the inventory, and again, it's going to have the greatest impact.
Thanks for sharing that. And I know you did. It's great that you have these stats and these numbers you see, and it's the core of your job, right? That's what you help people do. That's interesting as well. And Mahwushh, how is it for 2025? Because again, I like what you shared. You shared, the difficulties in 2024, right? So does it make sense in a market like Dubai as a property manager to say, yes, I will be adding properties, for example?
100%. I agree with Brooke here. There have been learnings. But the only way forward is to get the right inventory. You cannot do without having more asset, but I think you got to be a little bit more selective about the sort of asset you want to onboard. It's not just, everybody's welcome. And so you got to be a little bit more specific. It may be painful for the time being when you have limited number of units. So let's say, your break even is at 100, but if you will try to achieve it, let's say with 80, but these are your top-notch units somewhere in downtown or Palm Jumeirah or JBR or Marina for that matter, which are the go-to places for vacation rental business, that's when you sort of, make it work. So definitely get more asset, but at the same time, be very specific and be choosy. Don't just onboard anything for the sake of taking your number from, I would say, 100 to 200. Something which is in the second periphery, something which is in the outer periphery. So, for example, having a 5-bedroom villa in Palm on a private beach with the infinity pool, one villa, as compared to having, say, 20 units in a secondary area, say south or anywhere else. It's more beneficial. It makes more sense for the company to probably manage that one villa as compared to the 20 units which are probably unclustered and spread in the second periphery. From the financial point of view, from the operations point of view. So probably wait slightly, but get the right inventory under your portfolio.
Thanks for sharing that, indeed. And then I see there are more than 80 people attending right now. It's fantastic to hear because there's just a poll a few minutes ago, and 86% of people in this survey we just did said their number one priority in 2025 is growing inventory, adding supply. So it looks like we're at the right place, or we're attracting the people who care about the topic. I'm not sure, but it looks like what we're saying matters. Also, to go to your point, Mahwushh, we have in the comments Sergio in Cabo San Lucas in Mexico, who said basically that in their market, for example, they saw an increase of 18% in number of listings. But when it comes to luxury markets, it's still a good market. It's actually even more stable in terms of occupancy and rates. So it's interesting. It's going your way, at least for these two markets when it comes to talking about the top end of the market. So looks like in 2025, more people who are attending most people who are attending this webinar today want to add supply. So let's go about how to do it. And also because there's things, and I don't think it's our first, it's clearly not our first webinar together, Brooke. We talked in the past already about how to add inventory. So I'm curious about what are things still, true and still people should still be doing, and what is anything new in 2025? You think is there anything people should start doing or stop doing that's different in 2025 or not again, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing, and nobody likes when I say this answer, but the number one thing you can do to build to get more inventory is build a great company. If you build such a great company where people are just like word of mouth is kind of driving that business, that is the ultimate thing to do. But unfortunately, that's hard. It takes time. And when I was at that company down in Orlando, that was us. We had more leads than we knew what to do with. There's other, our partners that have so much existing. They built such a great company that they have all this great referral traffic coming in. That is the number one thing to do. But again, it's super challenging. It takes time, and everyone's obviously going to try to do that. But just going back to more to the question at bay here, really it's stick to the kind of fundamentals. And the number one fundamental is consistency, constant pressure on the market. So my mentor, a guy named Gary Jago, he has the School of Entrepreneurship at Notre Dame named after him. He was my mentor. With marketing, he said, Brooke, constant pressure on the market, continue to market and continue to do that. And the really those fundamentals, believe it or not, especially and a lot of most of our partners are US based. So direct mail still works. A lot of people think that direct mail is old school and it's for yesterday's managers, but guess what? It works. The math pencils out, the ROI is there. But it's critical that you have the right, data, and I'll talk about that in a second. The second thing, one that works, is cold email outreach. But you need to know how to do it. We're not talking like newsletters, through MailChimp or Constant Contact. We're talking what's called direct response marketing. And if you don't know how to write a really good, direct response marketing, just hire somebody on Upwork and Fiverr that does, and you can do it for a couple $100 and it'll work. But also don't use your primary email. You want to make sure you're using a service like Mailshake or Lemlist to do that. These are design tools for cold email outreach. And then again, like I just kind of alluded to before, the most important part is really the data, the target data that you're going after, and spend that money up front and getting the good targets, because we say cheap data is expensive. If you think about it, if you're sending it to the wrong there's wrong targets, it doesn't matter how good it is, your marketing materials. 50% of marketing really just comes down to your list. So spend the money up front, get really good target data. Again, unfortunately for the people that are listening to this outside the US, it's pretty challenging to get data outside the US borders, but inside the US, it's pretty easy. And a little slight shameless plug for Vintory. That's a lot about what we do. We have a big database of vacation rental homeowners. Yeah, and then the last is really building relationships with realtors, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in one of these future questions here.
Yeah, and again, it's on the other hand, like Vintory, you are the best place in industry to be talking about this. So I think let's not dance around it. I mean, yeah, it's okay, obviously. And actually, I look at the comments here, right? And again, two questions here. So what do we call direct email in a way? Direct mail, sorry, direct email, sorry. What do we call direct mail in this case? That's the first question where I can see this. And second question I can see there as well. People are asking as well, for example, how do I pick the right owners? For example, especially when it comes to upmarket, is there anything special upmarket to find these owners we just talked about? So what's basically direct mail and how to go after upmarket owners?
Um, I'm sorry, what was the first question? It was about
Oh,
email?
what is direct mail? Direct mail, basically. That was the
Oh,
question.
direct mail. It's just like postcards or letters directly to those homeowners. So you establish your target list you want to go after. You can narrow it down by many different methods, by house value, by location, by, if you're using the Vintory platform, you can do like what we call demand boosters. Like if it has a water feature like a pool or a hot tub, or if it has like a fire feature like a fire pit or a chimney or a fireplace, something like that. So the first step is to really just to understand your target, and then obviously building out the messaging. Messaging is so important. We don't talk about that enough. We have kind of our core. There's 7 pieces that need to be included in all messaging. It's USPs, compelling offer, call to action. And if anybody, emails me or reaches out, I'm happy to share that. We have a kind of a worksheet you can do for that. Um, but yeah, direct mail, and we found postcards work really well, and even sometimes just simple letters work well too on those mailers.
And let's imagine I'm in the US and I want to go after upmarket owners. Is there kind of like, should I go after some kind of like real estate transactions or kind of licenses? How can I find these people to send them this direct mail, for example?
Yeah, so I mean, there's really a couple of places you can get data, the target data. If you're in the U.S., one is just public records. Very often it's affiliated with MLS services, the real estate lists. You can start there, but sometimes it's challenging to get. Sometimes you only download one record at a time. If that's the case, there's list brokers out there. There's Info USA. There's Exact Data. There's a million different. If you just Google it, you can find it. And then you can do multiple, let me think, there's other services. You can do permit list. So if your city, county, or township has a vacation rental permit, you can request a list. You just have to go to the city or county and request it. It's just the Freedom of Information Act in the US. They have to give you that list. And then there's obviously industry companies that, like Vintory, that consolidate all this information and pull it in to make it really easy for you to, narrow down and sort and things like that. But you can choose your house value, you can choose location, bedroom, square footage, and all those different things to really, if you really want to go up market, you can do that.
Thanks for all these details. Indeed, that answers a lot of questions people had on this, on how to do it. Mahwushh, how different is it in Dubai, right? Imagine I want more of this. You talked about this first ring inner villas, the best placed villas. How do you go about it in a market like Dubai?
Yeah, so just to simplify that, like primary inventory, which is the hub of tourism. And then there's the outer periphery, which is more resident based. But what Brooke said here, I'll just sort of expand on that. It's all about having that personal touch where you put yourself out there and let people see who you are as a company. So there's a certain company culture you're trying to promote, and you want to propagate, you want your clients, whether they're your guests or your homeowners, to know for the sort of service you're delivering, that's given, right? That's the first thing you have to do. And I think to sustain ourselves in a competitive market like Dubai for past 8 years, where hundreds of companies, came up and went down, that's the single most thing that has gotten us going: consistency, and really sort of propagating one singular message, which is centered around service. So that has been that's just given. But if I look at the economic dynamics of the city, what worked for me, and so what is something I have to double down on, and what is something that I probably would like to eliminate as a holiday home company. Dubai market is such that there is diversification within the asset class as well, right? It's the most wanted tourism hub where there are so many nationalities who have second home. They're second homeowners. Somebody in Russia loves to spend the summers here. They have a second home where they'll be here just for the summers, and then for the rest of the year they're away. Same goes for UK, India, Pakistan. I mean, 90% of the asset here belongs to the expat population, right? Who are not necessarily all about the higher rental yield. So this notion needs to change, that everything is about, getting higher rental yield, which is false in today's day and age. You got to pivot, you got to diversify, and you got to change the asset and the homeowner you're targeting. So it has to be a second homeowner. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's only, I would say, yield centric. Let them put that on, annual rentals. Let them go for the annual lease. Holiday home may not be for them. And holiday home companies can be expensive because we have our own costs, right? We have operations, we have on-ground housekeeping teams, marketing, you name it. So probably for some, it would make more sense that if they manage it personally rather than hiring a short-term rental company to do it for them. So one is second homeowners. The second I would say is, since Dubai is all about the real estate, there are different tiers of developers, right? So the second tier developer, a private developer with sort of a limited stock. Not everything gets sold. There will be something slightly unique or, let's say quirky, which they can't sell. Not 100% of your stock gets sold. So it's got to be more B2B, where you go and you speak to these companies and say, because I'm a turnkey solution provider, I can do real estate, I can do short-term rentals. So while I help you sell it, I would also do short-term rental on it, and we make money while you try to sell it. So that's another segment you can focus on.
That's super interesting indeed how you can indeed go after these companies. And I was just in Croatia last week at a conference. I was speaking at the conference, and it was there the CEO of Aways, which is basically the biggest vacation rental company in Europe. They're huge in Croatia. It's a big market. People don't think about this, but it's a big market for vacation rental in Europe. And the way they do it, I'm like, how do you grow? And basically, was late at night, having drinks. He's like, how do you guys grow? They send people, I'm not going to say to each and every construction site, but sort of like each new, let's say, building tower coming up in the area where there can be multiple listings in for, they go after these companies and they want to see who are the investors, developers, and basically they make sure they got the listing even before the building is finished. Um, I'm not sure whether it makes sense in the US. Have you ever heard of this? Or are these times over, Brooke? It's kind of like people going even after the buildings after being built, or real estate agents, developers. I mean, because we talk about tactics to got owner addresses and stuff. Does it make sense to go after companies? Is it something you see as well happening?
Yeah, I mean, well, new construction is obviously fantastic. We always wanted that anytime we do it. And if you can't get the list, I mean, we would just do it more the traditional way when we'd see a new development coming up. Obviously, we would pull the tax records and go out there and, obviously just continue to hit them and market them. And that was a big strategy we had. And because we love new construction. But obviously, again, outside of the US, if you're doing that, I mean, be scrappy, do whatever you can. If you got to go up to the construction sites and brown nose them, bring them coffee and donuts and whatever to get deals, then go for it, because that's new real estate obviously is where you want to be, because it's going to be decorated brand new. It's obviously going to be fresh inventory. Yeah, it's definitely great inventory.
Yeah, and it's again, it's very interesting because in the US, things can be done much more efficiently, I would say, to deploy strategies like you guys have at Vintory, right? And because I'm reading the comments again, I see Anna in Italy saying it's hard to find all information, and Dean McLucky as well. Hello, Dean, in South Africa, saying that the challenge is indeed getting the details of homeowners in desired destinations. That's a tricky bit. So maybe being a bit scrappy, but here is the goal. Um, Going back to you as well, Brooke, on this. So as Mahwushh explained how she can make her property management company attractive to, let's say, investors, homeowners, real estate companies, what would be your advice on your side? How can I make my company attractive to homeowners? We talked about the messaging, for example. What do I need to do? What do I need to say to make myself the obvious choice for these homeowners?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I think the previous poll, I think it was poll number 4, they talked about, what's their biggest challenge. And I think competition was the number one answer. And absolutely, like you have to differentiate. If you're not differentiating, you're going to be just like everybody else and you're just a commodity. And then it becomes a race to the bottom. And I mean, when I launched Vantage, I mean, we had, Ocean City, Maryland is a 9-mile sandbar with and there's about 20,000 condos, and there was about 25 management companies. And I set up shop in this one office, and right next to me was my biggest competitor. It was a company called Caldwell Banker that had been around for 40 years. They had 4,000 properties under management. And here I was with 0 properties, scrappy guy, didn't even live in the area. I was driving 3 hours every week to this area to try to launch this company. And I knew right from the gates, if I created a company like everybody else, I wasn't going to be successful. So step one is I had to differentiate. I had to create a different program. And one of the tactics I did, it was so funny. So there was a brand new Hilton that was in the area. And I remember, and they were getting like 3 times the rental amounts of the average one bedroom oceanfront condo. And I was like, well, why is that? So I literally just went down there. I actually rented a room for the night just to see what it was about. And they had this beautiful lobby. They had a USA Today sitting on your doorstep every morning. They had a beautiful gym. And it was just a nice, property. And I'm like, this wasn't really much different than, some of the one bedroom condos that I've seen, in this market, and the fact that they were paying 3x the price. So I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, how do I kind of cross that gap here? How do I come close to that? So what I did is I tried to build a rental program that was more like the Hilton, than necessarily the Caldwell Banker Vacation Rental Management Company, where their idea of hospitality was when you walked in the door, they handed you the keys and said, get the hell out. That was kind of their hospitality. So, the first thing we did is I emulated that. So we hired these college interns that would literally go by bike and deliver the USA Today on everybody's doorstep every single morning. And nobody was doing that. No other management company was doing that. If the property didn't have a gym, we offered a free gym membership. We partnered with one of the local gyms and gave them these certificates that they could use. We did something called our Sunny Days Guaranteed program, where if it rained 4 more days out of their week's vacation, we actually gave them a full refund for their week's stay. Now, that was actually, I bought a small insurance policy. Believe it or not, there's insurance policies out there that you can get based on weather. And then we never paid out a claim, so we ended up self-insuring, so we didn't have to worry about that. And then I partnered with a company like Third Home. If you've never heard of Third Home, it's the largest reciprocal vacation club in the world. It's unbelievable. We partnered with them, and every one of our owners had access, and we gave them a membership to Third Home, so then they could then travel and stay at all those different homes. So they could turn their second home and travel all over the world as many times as they want. So again, the whole point of this is we had to differentiate. We had to create a different, program, or else, like I said, we just became a commodity, and then it was all about commission. And very often, when we onboard new partners now, we see this. They come to us and we ask them, what are your USPs, your unique selling propositions? What is your differentiators? And a lot of times they sound very platitudinal. They sound like everybody else. And we're like, guys, if you want this to work, you need to kind of do some different things. Everyone says they've got, revenue management. Everybody says they've got, all this great marketing and things like that. But like, truly, what are you doing that differentiates you? And you have to build a program that's different. And then, I think you asked the question too about, real estate companies, like how do you, kind of partner with realtors and things like that. There's a company out there called Casago, which is a great company. They've got about 5,000 properties under management. And I know Steve Schwab, the CEO and founder over there, they're a franchise model, great franchise model, which I highly recommend. But he came up with something called a Leads for Life program. And it goes like this. If a realtor refers a home to Casago, all guests that come through that property, they're going to see that realtor's information multiple times. So when they get the confirmation email, it's going to have, hey, if you're interested in purchasing real estate while you're in town, please call Jane Doe with Keller Williams. When you get your key code email, the same kind of thing. It's going to have Jane Doe, information in there. Post checkout survey in the property. There's going to be a nice little frame that says, hey, if you're interested in purchasing, any real estate, scan this QR code for a list of the top properties that make a rental property. And this property almost becomes like a billboard for that realtor. And they get so much business because in the end, that's really what an agent wants. That's what a realtor wants. A realtor doesn't necessarily want, yes, they want maybe $100, $500 commission and things like that, referral fee, but really what they want is more properties. They want more sales. And if that property becomes that billboard for them, then that'll go a long way. And if you can build out a program like that, Leads for Life, which Casago did, I think it's a great plan.
That's such a wealth of information. And thank you so much, Yuvika, by the way. In the comment section, Yuvika has put links to the Lifetime Leads program as well. Mahwushh, on getting a property management company attractive to owners, investors, anything else you would like to add on the topic?
One point that I'd like to highlight is that that there's a difference between property management company, which is more on revenue sharing model, and so why there was such a rise for Airbnb management per se, or rental management. You see these Instagram reels where people are coming out of G wagons and saying, "How did I make my first million by getting into rental arbitrage. I'm really sorry to report that being in that business for 8 years, that can be the most suicidal sort of line of business that you can take, and especially in a region like Dubai, where the overheads are just above the roof. So you got to be a little bit more realistic. And if you think that, in this day and age, and especially for this region, the only model that can work, and especially for Dubai and UAE, has to be revenue share. You already have supply, okay, and you already have a diversified sort of a portfolio of investors and landlords who probably just need a different sort of a spin to the property management, not just higher rental yield. So this master lease or rental arbitrage, and this whole fancy thing that is being built, that is being promoted online, this needs to be taken with a pinch of salt.
That's an interesting approach. I'm gonna ask, so before we move on to the last question I had today and we do the Q&A, which last question would be like, so should we not diversify? We talk about adding property, then we see should we diversify the type of in property or location 2025? Side question here. Airbnb launched its co-host network platform. The co-host network platform on Airbnb basically allows, let's imagine, there was some data from Airbnb saying that 40% of hosts would host more, so I guess welcome more guests, get more bookings, if they had some help. So what Airbnb is doing is they have a platform where they can match basically a host with some co-hosts, and the co-host can there offer their services. We can go from anything from listing a property to the cleaning, the check-ins, the full service management, right? And I just did a video. I shared this on my LinkedIn profile, and I went to see for the part. They launched it 3 years ago, first in Paris. I went to the Paris market, look at this, and half of the co-hosts recommended are really property managers, right? They manage like 50, 60, 100 listings, at least in France. I know in the US it's slightly different, but so that's interesting to me because it's a source of leads as well, but you kind of building your business on Airbnb, which is, to me, I always feel a bit nervous, building my business on somebody else's turf, like what happens when they pull the rug. But so two questions for you again. I know it's out of the blue, but do you see this, for example, as a great place? Yes, as a property manager, I should also list myself out there, put myself out there as a co-host on Airbnb. That's a good idea to get leads, number one. Number two, there was a question earlier on the a commission everybody's making. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm making 20%." Do you think what's the average you're seeing in your market? What's the average commission you're seeing in a way? And do you think that this the arrival of new, say, co-hosts, could that drive down the margin of co-hosts? So what do you think? Is it an opportunity or not? Can you differentiate yourself then on these platforms? Who wants to get started on the potential impact in 2025 of that platform, if any?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump on that if you don't mind. Well, first off, I loved your video, Thibault, on the co-hosting platform, because I've really been studying this and looking at it, and it's a very interesting concept. And if I'm a Airbnb shareholder, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, it is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because what they're doing is they're creating their own ecosystem where they're keeping all these. I mean, really, they're property managers. They're small property managers, is what they're doing. They're professionals, right? And they're keeping them on the platform, and therefore they're going to keep them on Airbnb and hopefully not book direct or not book through the other sources. Because if you look at traditionally, I mean, many of the partners we have, when we ask them, they say they get about, a third, a third direct bookings, a third are on VRBO, and a third are on Airbnb. So if you can get 100% of your bookings on that supply on Airbnb, that's fantastic for Airbnb. If you can get people that would traditionally not rent their property because they think it's too much of a hassle, and you make it super simple for them to get that help that they need by leveraging these co-hosts, that's fantastic for Airbnb. But exactly to your point before, there's something about having all your eggs in one basket, and you're not diversified, and you're on that ecosystem. I've seen people literally get cut off for doing nothing wrong, and they've got, their entire business model is made up on the backs of somebody else. And I do not want to be controlled by Brian Chesky, and what he cares about me as a little old, property manager. So maybe, and I've done enough experience to actually gone through this process. But maybe there is a way you can actually get leads that way, and then you can slowly, I'm sure Airbnb is not going to like it, but maybe you can slowly start pulling them off to your traditional rental program. But it is a way to, initially get some supply. I actually did apply to be a co-host, so we'll see if I start getting some leads that way for I have a property in Bethany Beach, Delaware.
Good to hear. Mahwushh, any views on this? And do you think it's because I already thought about this when you start talking about, these videos we see online, get rich rental arbitrage or do this co-hosting arbitrage thing. What's your viewpoint on this platform?
Absolutely. If you look at it from the Airbnb's point of view, it's got a certain strategy they're trying to push. Nothing wrong with it, only if you're Airbnb. But from a property management point of view, you need to diversify. And the future is direct bookings. You will never be able to eradicate or completely abolish the channel management. It will always be there. But from what I've learned from my experience and moving forward, it's got to have a very balanced sort of a split between various channels, whether it's Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, Ctrip, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, starting from at least 30% of these bookings have to be from your own website. That's the future. I see that happening even when I'm, booking as a traveler. Something that I used to see on Booking.com. Now that particular hotel or Airbnb reaches me directly and pushes me to sort of book directly. So seeing it from another perspective, direct bookings is the way. You will never be able to sort of completely let go of the channels. They will always be there, but there has to be a healthy balance.
And speaking of diversification, right? We talked about diversification of your booking sources, booking channel. What do you think about, let's go back to inventory for a minute. I know that you've been expanding in Riyadh, for example. What's the logic here? Because we could think, oh, wow, she's going from one market, which is Dubai, which is growing, which is interesting, complicated enough, and going after a different country, and it's with very different environments. So what's the logic here, and would you advise that to other people expanding to a different market or even country?
Absolutely. Diversifying, going into different market is the only way forward. And probably because, the proximity of the region is such that Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and then Riyadh is just less than 3 hours from each other by plane. And, you have to go where the growth is. And in that region, the way Saudi Arabia is growing, and especially Riyadh, it's a genuine market which is driven by the demand. Staying in hotels, very sort of mediocre, service level. Probably they're still underway, building hotels and, getting used to a certain level of service. Having said that, Dubai has an unmatched level of service, which is which cannot really be found anywhere globally. To be honest, I'm an avid traveler. I've been to many countries, but the sort of service Dubai gives you is unheard of. So even like a 5-star somewhere else would seem like a 3-star in Dubai. So you see, when I look at Riyadh, I'm still trying to make inroads and, having these conversations with the institutional investor, not going with the single homeowners. It's a very different market. It's a growing market, but then only when you're a growing market, that's where, the challenges are. And if you scale something in Riyadh, it's 100% profitable. The city is built as such, and the sort of influx of the outsiders who are going there and staying there for a couple of months. Every time I board a plane to Riyadh, it's full of these, consultants who are going there and probably would be staying there for a few weeks. And, having them sort of settle in a hotel of a mid-level service it instigates you. It pushes you to bring forward a solution like a vacation rental or a short-term rental solution, which is perfect for a market like Riyadh. You have clusters of buildings in one specific area, which can be redone. And by the way, rental arbitrage definitely can work for Riyadh. Not for anything else in that region, but definitely for Riyadh, because their annual lease is still, it still makes sense on the books. Even if you go for short-term rental, if you look at the ADRs, etc. So the market is growing. It's extremely painful, but no pain, no gain.
Interesting. And I like how you said, I really like that you brought back the geography, right? It's 3 hours away. It's different, not so different. That's very interesting to hear. How about you, Brooke, on diversifying? Because usually, we would say, let's go deep and dominate a market. And is there anything makes you think, in 2025, maybe diversifying could be interesting for some property managers?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at your diversification. There's the obviously the location, your market, but there's also even the makeup of your supply, like, by property types, by bedroom types and bedroom counts and things like that. So, I mean, just to start with the location one. So you're right. I mean, I used to always recommend, waiting until launching into new markets, like wait until you are by far the market leader. And look, I still think there's some truth to that. And if you read my other book, Vacation Rental Secrets, that was one of the top 10 mistakes that people made all the time um, they didn't even dominate their own current market, but yet they were trying to go to a different market and do it. And then all you're doing by doing that is you're diversifying yourself and you're splitting yourself up. So until you've kind of built up a market and you have a great, presence, and then you can maybe hire a GM, and then kind of maybe launch that other market, I've always recommended being a little bit slower to do that expansion. But I'm kind of changing my tune slightly, and just because I've seen a couple things recently where people have lost their businesses due to, you think about, again, you're going back to that putting all your eggs in one basket and you have a little bit of risk. Think about, like, due to regulations. I mean, how many times have we heard about, somebody coming in and they, a couple state or local legislators, cancel the, short-term rentals in a market, and how detrimental that is to their business. Or look at natural disasters. I mean, look at the floods out in Nashville just a couple weeks ago, or look at the fire in Maui last year. I mean, I have a really good friend, Angie Leone, with Coconut Condos, probably one of the best well-run companies I've ever seen. One day she's got this incredible, thriving business, very successful. She got Vacation Rental Manager of the Year by the VRMA. She got Maui Small Business Entrepreneur of the Year. In literally like 2 hours, her entire business was gone, decimated. 98% of her inventory just went poof like that. And she's done. I mean, her business is completely gone because she was only in that one section of Maui and Lahaina. And then again, look at the people in Asheville, North Carolina that lost a lot of this. So, and then, I think there was a hurricane back in, I think it was 2022, Fort Myers Beach, Hurricane Ian, that just completely demolished some of our partners. So long-winded way of getting to, I think it makes sense to maybe diversify into some other markets. So you have a little bit of, you're de-risking a little bit. And then also you can also do some seasonality part of that. So if you're in a beach market, maybe you go into more of a ski market, and allows you to kind of, get your cash flow to be a little bit less seasonal. And then also your team, maybe your team can be used, across both markets. You can have shared reservationists and things like that. But then the other part of it is more of the diversification of the properties that you have. So I'll give you an example. So when I was at that company in Orlando, I was chief business development officer. Again, we were by far the market leader. And this is back in, like, around, and this is just before I came on board, but this is around 2008. The largest home was a 7 bedroom in that area. And there was literally only one in the entire market of Orlando. But then what they did is that company went out and they surveyed their guests. And just to give you an idea, we got over 7,000 surveys, but a third of our guests were searching for 7 bedrooms or greater. Now, keep in mind, we had about 13,000 reservations a year. We had over 100,000 guests per year. So again, a third of our guests were searching for a product that didn't exist. So what were they doing? They were renting 2 or 3 homes, next to each other. So what did we do? We went out there and we built an 8 bedroom home. Everyone thought we were crazy. They were like, "Oh my gosh, nobody's going to rent that. You're insane." But we followed the data and we were right. That home, Thibault, it booked $500,000 in advanced bookings in the first 12 months.
Wow.
It started a wave of large homes. And now, I this morning, just because I know I was preparing for this, I went on to Airbnb in Verbo and I looked in Orlando. There's over 1,000 eight bedrooms in Orlando on Airbnb alone, and there's over 450 eight bedrooms or greater on VRBO. And again, in 15 years, it went from one property to this. And now, look, this was going to happen. This was going to be a natural attrition. This would have happened over time. But what the fact is, we pulled it forward because we surveyed our guests. We asked what they were looking for. And again, they were looking for a product that did not exist. So we built it. And again, we kind of created that category of the large bed count homes in Orlando. So my point is, survey your guests, try to find out where you are, where, do you have the right inventory of what they're looking for? And again, don't fall into that kind of that survivor bias trap, if you will.
I love that story. And again, maybe it could be a next question in a poll. Should we blame Brooke for being the starter of this whole Mac mention revolution in vacation rentals? And
It
indeed,
wasn't me, for the record. It was before my time. It was Steve Trover at All Star Vacation Homes, and now he's with Better Talent. So he
Steve.
was the one that literally created that.
And Basil says that in the Orlando market, homes go easily up to 15 bedrooms. Indeed. I want to make sure I'm taking two questions we had here. From the Frederick Lee, question for Brooke. How effective is cold calling?
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, some people do have some success with cold calling. You just have to do it in the right way. You have to obviously, provide value. I'm always a big fan of, help, don't sell. The one thing, especially again inside the U.S. Borders, you have to be careful about with cold calling is the do not call list. Trust me, it's an $11,000 fine per instance, and you don't want too many of those. So make sure your list is deduped against the do not call list.
Well, I still have you, Brooke. How do you determine that there's a hole in the market? Asked Nikki Smith.
Um, Explain what do you think Nikki meant by that? What do you mean a hole in the market? Like just an opening, potentially like by bedroom size and things like that. I would say again, it comes back to surveying. Like what we always do whenever we're stuck on something with our software product is we talk to our customers, and it's amazing, how much feedback and how much information you can get. And I've said this before. If you we were talking about before about you have to differentiate, you have to create a rental program that's like, start by just asking other homeowners what would make the ideal rental program for you? What would you look for? And ask them, and you'll be amazed the business. I mean, they could literally you could design an entire property management business by literally just talking to homeowners and find out all their pain points, and then just take the inverse of that and solve those pain points, and you will have an incredible rental program. And again, you'll have no problem attracting new homeowners because you've built a program that they're looking for and not necessarily what you're looking for.
And
I think
and and putting my sorry, I'm going to put my PriceLabs hat for a minute on. And
Literally.
there's a tool called Revenue Estimator Pro on PriceLab, Revenue Estimator Pro. And what it does, if you enter an address, it's going to tell you for this address in the overall market, it's able to tell you the revenues for a property and even per number of bedrooms, for example. So you can refine the comp sets and say, okay, I want to know what's how much they can make in a market, and then you can refine and say, I want to see for 5 to and up bedrooms, for example. That can give you an idea, let's say, of how much demand there is and how much people are getting for this. Obviously, I think you have to do exactly both with what Brooke said. Right? What's the potential demand? Because that's unsatisfied demand that you will not see the current bookings because you don't know what you can guess from the bookings. You can guess how fast these properties fill up. You can see this in the revenue management data and how much they're getting. Right? What's the ADR, for example? That can give you an idea of there's room for more, for example. Mahwushh, I cut you off, I think.
No worries. I just wanted to add, you have to give this to direct bookings that, when you have the incoming calls and when you have your own website and you keep getting inquiries about a certain requirement that you cannot fulfill, that's another indication of what's missing in your portfolio, what's missing in your inventory pyramid. For example, like the larger ones are, let's say, always 5 to 7% of the total inventory. So, which is something which is getting filled really, really quickly in your own portfolio, and you keep getting requirements for that. You keep getting asked for it, and so your reservations team is your go-to channel. They can guide you that this is what we need more of. So our reservation team always tells us that we need more townhouses, or we need more villas, or whatever it can be. Your
In
own data gives you the best insights.
yeah. In general, I've seen this across the board in markets that traditionally don't have a kind of head high bed count homes. If you build that first one, or if you kind of even I've even seen people combine like two 4-bedroom townhouses, market as an 8-bedroom. It's always the top performing home in the market. It's we saw it in Bethany Beach, Delaware. There wasn't any large bed count homes. I was identified this one property. I pointed to my friend and former business partner, who's a real estate investor. I pointed to him, and it's absolutely crushing it. I mean, it is doing 2x what he thought it was going to do, because again, it was the largest bed count home in there. You get this multi-generational travel. People want to travel with their family, their parents, their grandparents, their kids, their grandkids, and there's very few, because most people are not designing homes. They're designing homes for more so to be like a second home. They're not necessarily designing it to be, accommodating what people are looking for in travel. And
Yeah.
people want that multi-generational travel. They want to travel as a family. I know I do with my family, and I can very rarely find any of the right supply.
And we are time. There's still 60 people here. And I can see some of the questions are actually, asking, hey, I want to contact Mahwush's company. I want to work with Brooke, which is fantastic. So, Mahwushh, if people want to contact you, what's the best way to reach you?
Get to our website, www.oneperfectstay.com. Drop me a message, or call us, or give us your contact details, and we'll call you.
Sounds good. And again, we'll make sure that in the email people are getting, there's going to be the email addresses, and the link is being added right now in the chat box. Brooke, how about you? What's the best way to
Yeah,
reach you?
so LinkedIn is usually the best. I'm really active on LinkedIn. Always, helping, not selling, adding a lot of value all the time. So just Brooke Pfautz on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly at Brooke, Brooke, at Vintory, Vintory.com. And it's, again, happy to help out any way I can. And look, really appreciate you putting this on.
Mahwushh and Brooke, thank you so much for your time today. Again, thank you to Sting Dan Yuvika for helping organize the event behind the scenes. Thank you all for attending, and we over time. There's still 57 of us. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope you learned. There was a lot of action here. We'll turn this video as well into an article again, so you have time to read this, know what action you should be taking with the right links. We listed a lot of resources, worksheets, everything. We want to make sure you have this either on a Vintory website or any website, Casago mentioned, for example. All right. Once again, thank you all for your time. Have a nice evening, day, wherever you are. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
y'all.
you. Fun. Cheers.